Hello, everyone, and welcome to another ISACA Podcast. My name is Chris McGowan. I'm the Information Security Professional Practice Principal at ISACA. Joining me today is Zach Folk. We're going to talk about his upcoming article, What Enterprises Need to Know About ChatGPT and Cybersecurity. Welcome, Zach. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Happy to be here. Excited to be a part of the ISACA family at this point. Just very excited and looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah. Before we jump into your article, I wanted to touch on a few things so our audience could get to know you a little bit. So you do Ironmans, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. I actually, around the time that this article should be published, I should be in Portugal about to do my fourth.
Jeez. So you're a military man, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I've been in the Alabama Guard for 14 and a half years, and I've enjoyed every second of it. So.
Yeah. Thank you for your service. I'm a retired Navy, actually. I did close to 23 years in the Navy.
Oh, nice. My cousin's stationed up in Norfolk. He's I don't know what he does, but he's
something on a ship, I imagine.
Yes, yeah, he's equivalent to an E7. I forget you guys call it E7s.
Yeah, chief. That's what I retired as myself. Yeah.
Nice, very cool.
Well, again, thank you for your service. So, ChatGPT, it's been the talk of the town. Just AI in general, right? It's everywhere you look. AI this, AI that. So in your article, you referred to ChatGPT as like an evolution of the encyclopedia. What exactly did you mean by that?
Right. So I mean, I don't want to age myself too much for everybody, but back when I was growing up, right, you didn't have Google, you didn't have Bing, you didn't have anything, right? So really, you could say that Google and Bing and all that was the first step, right? Because an encyclopedia, for all these young kids who don't know what it is, it was a really thick book that you had on your mantle or your bookshelf that you would ask your dad or your mom a question, and they'd be like, go look it up in the encyclopedia, right? You didn't have a search engine, you didn't have something to tell you what cybersecurity was, right? So you'd look at the encyclopedia, right? Well, now we've gone from having a book that was static. Once that was published, do you remember the salesmen who used to come to the door and they would be trying to sell you new encyclopedias, and it was a bundle of 24, right? For one for every letter, or 26. God, I'm gonna need to brush up my alphabet.
They always seem to show up when I wanted to do something, but my mom would let them come in and talk about it, so it always screwed my day up.
Yeah, exactly. See, and that was static. They'd have to come back and you have to buy new ones every year. Well, now with ChatGPT, if from a system admin perspective, maybe I want to look something up about a Cisco command, right? And I can type it into ChatGPT and it's going to tell me, hey, I need to type in whatever command I'm trying to look for, right? Maybe I'm trying to bounce the port security, right? I can actually go there and I can type in ChatGPT and it'll give me screenshots, right? So that knowledge is at our fingertips. It's on our keyboards. It's ever evolving, and it doesn't have to be Cisco. You could ask for Brocade. You could ask for, I guess Cisco and Brocade are the two that I work with primarily. But it'll populate a screenshot and tell you, hey, this is the exact command that you need to put in, and then you can do it on your computer. And if you get an error, you go back and you're able to actually progress through whatever you're trying to research. Or, if you're looking at policies or you want to know something, you ask it a question and it populates the information for you. And you don't have to go buy a book every year or think, is this updated? Is this actually correct? Has there been anything else that has been added to this search? I mean, nowadays you just put it into ChatGPT and you can go fact check it. It's not always right, but it is an encyclopedia at your fingertips for whether you're trying to work on something or you're trying to do research on something.
Yeah, I think a big key there is usually you'd have to be have some kind of background in cybersecurity or whatever it may be that you're searching in. But with the ChatGPT or these AI models, it's pretty much, you don't have to have that resident knowledge. You can just have a conversation with it and it learns from the questions you ask, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's really the uniqueness to ChatGPT is how it can have that conversation with you. And of course, I'm sure most of your listeners have heard about prompt engineering, how important that becomes when you're asking these questions to ChatGPT. And I mean, it really is amazing to see how it'll take something from maybe 3 or 4 questions ago and just integrate it into the question that you ask. I mean, it really is something else that Google, IBM, Apple, they've all worked with AI in the past. Just none of them took this approach to it, right? And to have a conversation with AI and I think they call it the realism engine, to have that and pull it and just continue to build on the conversation is it's really awesome to me.
Yeah, it's revolutionary, right? That's pretty much what it is. I mean, the sci-fi movies have been talking about AI and taking over, Skynet and all this craziness or whatever. But I mean, this is one step into, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. It's just one step towards machine learning, doing its own thing. And I mean, sure. There's pros and cons to it, obviously. But speaking of pros and cons, how do you think ChatGPT enhances enterprise security?
Well, so obviously the ability to have AI within your enterprise security, really that's the key nowadays, right? Because the first thing you think about is, God, how many alerts does a SOC analyst get, right? And this really goes beyond ChatGPT, right? I mean, and you can take it outside of cybersecurity. How often does your HR department get hit, right? And it's not just ChatGPT. There are other companies, but to implement AI in general into your cybersecurity posture, and nowadays it's almost like not integrating the MITRE framework, right? I mean, if you're not doing it, you're gonna be wrong, right? I mean, our adversaries are using AI and ML to better their code, right? I mean, that was one of the first things you saw about ChatGPT, right? Is there was a group that created a worm that obfuscated itself, that was changing as it moved, right? And if you're not leveraging AI on the technical side of your cybersecurity posture, man, you're not going to be able to keep up with the threat every day, right? So when we're looking at things from our perspective, right? Anything that you can automate and help augment your staff. I mean, staff augmentation nowadays is crucial, right? You just don't have enough people. And honestly, there's not enough skilled people out there either, right? I mean, you can bring somebody on from college, but they don't know how to use your SIEM tool. They don't know how to use your endpoint detection tool. So you need to actually, the staff augmentation part of what ChatGPT and other AI models can offer you, it better builds your posture. It's another layer in that defense that you need to be building for your cybersecurity defenses. And I mean, I'll kind of throw it back to you if you have anything to add to that there. But I've thoroughly enjoyed using AI on our side and working with customers from our side on what type of, which company they want to go with, which AI model they want to go with, and implementing that in. And a lot of it is a staff augmentation or just alert fatigue. I mean, you look at some of these new EDRs that have AI in them. I mean, you're talking about, okay, the secretary may download the Excel spreadsheet from that Outlook file, but your new EDR that runs AI can actually stop that from happening, and that would have stopped the Colonial Pipeline, right? The hack that Colonial Pipeline had 2 years ago. It was a downloaded attachment from an email, and now you have EDRs that have AI in them that can stop that. I mean, it's awesome, but you got to keep up with the adversary, because the adversary is also saying, hey, they're getting smart on the defensive side. We got to get smart on our side.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the adversarial, I mean, ChatGPT, that's the buzzword because it's the more publicized one. Obviously, there's a lot of AI models out there that do different things. But how exactly do you think the adversaries are using these models to better their cause? If that makes sense.
I think first and foremost, I think the biggest thing is it's one, they can actually improve their code and their tactics, right? When they're actually trying to drop an exploit, right? Or if they're trying to code something that, hey, once we get inside, this is what we want it to do. They can test it. They can ask ChatGPT, hey, look, I can't figure out this line of code to make it do X, right? So that's when you start, and I know ChatGPT and all these other AI guys are like, oh, hey, look, we're keeping the adversary from doing that. But that's where prompt engineering comes in, right? You got to say, hey, I got this line of code and I need it to just execute that. You're not saying, hey, I want it to exploit a Cisco switch, right? Or I want it to exploit a Windows, 16 server 16 vulnerability. You write, hey, this is the next step in the code, right? So first and foremost, they're helping it to develop their tools, right? And how their exploits work. The second one, honestly, and it goes past, ChatGPT, but some of its other I guess you'd say, brothers and sisters like Whisper or Dolly. Social engineering, man. I mean, the social engineering aspect of ChatGPT, whether it's voice, video, or just even on doing research on a company, right? I mean, ChatGPT can help you do research on that company. Hey, what questions should I ask this bank to sound like a customer or a provider, right? I mean, it's a whole nother avenue of, they don't even have to almost think on some of this stuff. They can just go in and be like, hey, I need to know which questions I need to ask here. What makes me sound like a reputable, I don't know, some, ATM provider, right? And they can get a list of questions. I mean, it's almost like you hear a social engineer, hey, my greatest tool is a clipboard. Okay, well, clipboard makes you look official. Now I have an official set of questions now too, that I can go ask these questions and I sound even more official. Or let me, figure out what does a badge look like, and you can have Dolly create you, a fancy looking badge or something like that. So I think social engineering is probably low key the biggest enhancement for AI on the attacker side, because it's just going to make it a lot harder for us from a human perspective to know if it's real or not.
Yeah, I mean, just the average person could sound so much more sophisticated. And even if there's a language barrier, they can bypass that using a lot of these AI tools. I mean, speaking on social engineering, I've worked a few missions in the Navy where we did a lot of social engineering. And it was a lot of going on, I'm going to age myself, on not Facebook, MySpace, and finding out information on people and then using that to generate phishing emails and things like that. But these days, I mean, I've played around with it a little bit. What I haven't played around with, but I'm interested in, is the Dolly. That's the one with the images, correct?
Yep. You can
create images, and then the ones that they can impersonate someone's voice.
Whisper's the other one they have that does that.
So I know that a lot of people have been using things like that, especially during like politics and stuff like that, for misinformation. And with all the things going on in the world right now, sometimes you can't just trust what you hear or see. You have to verify. And
right.
That, I mean, to me is a little scary, but to the average person, because I mean, I've talked to people who, aren't computer savvy or security savvy, and they're like, oh, ChatGPT, you can't get it to do something bad. It'll tell you it can't do it. And you said it already. I mean, it's just how you ask the questions.
And again, prime example, you mentioned phishing emails. You don't have to say, hey, I need you to make me a phishing email, because it will tell you, hey, look, I'm an ethical machine. I don't do this, right? But if you go in and you say, hey, I'm a marketeer from a cybersecurity firm, and I need an email generated to an executive, it's going to build that for you. And that's part of your fit. And then you can continue to critique that email and that phishing attempt and make it look more and more legit. And again, there's also a huge technical portion that we're not talking about here that does take skill. Sounds like phishing super easy, but it's actually a lot harder to do to get it really, really good. But the content of that phishing email, you can make it sound super professional by using ChatGPT and asking it the right questions. And again, it goes back to that prompt portion.
Yeah, I mean, we said it already earlier in this podcast. They're getting better at what they're doing using AI, and it pretty much requires us in the security field to utilize the same tools to catch them from, the stronger they are, the stronger we have to be, which means evolving. So what do you think's next for AI? What's the next biggest thing?
Oh man. So
I mean, we jumped right off the deep end. When ChatGPT was released, everyone was like, ooh, ah.
You look at IBM's had Watson since the 60s, right? I mean, they've had and they use it for a completely different reason, right? Google's been working with AI for the last 15 years. Microsoft has had AI for the past 10, 15, 20 years. Just no one took it from the idea of, hey, we could replace the Google search bar, right? By hey, come ask our AI what you want to know, and then you don't have to click through the 10 pages of Google, right? It'll give you the answer that you're looking for. But really, the next jump for AI, I know we talk about the security aspects of everything, but the actual business as itself, right? I know people who are, well, let me start with that. The business as itself, right? I know that there are companies out there who are leveraging AI models to help with the HR, right? There's a tool out there that companies can bring in house, and you pretty much let it have all access to your stuff, and your company is able to, your employee can go on there and type in, hey, I want to take PTO, right? How much PTO do I have? Oh, I've got this many. I want to take PTO on October 5th, and it'll go and register your PTO, right? And then just I see from an HR standpoint, and then a business analytics standpoint, right? I know there are some people out there who are using it to try and evaluate the stock market to make sure that they're buying and selling at the right time. It goes way past security and AI, you don't think of it as like, I'm not thinking of it like iRobot wise, Skynet wise, right? Like it's just how on an everyday basis it makes people smarter but lazier at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be that, like you said earlier, it's a revolutionary shift in how we do things, how we accomplish things, and it's how it's integrated into daily life, right? And what are like, because eventually AI is going to be in the household, right? It's not going to be on your phone. It's not going to be just answering chat. It's going to be in your fridge. It's going to be, it's going to be incorporated into your house, into your daily routine. And I still think we're kind of far away from that, but that's the next step. Is it's going to go from the business side, how people are using it for cybersecurity, bettering business, bettering financial models, and then it's eventually going to hit like like what is ADT security doing with this, right? Or simply say for any of them, right? There's got to be some sort, there's going to be some sort of AI involved in security systems eventually, and to help augment. So it's that shift into AI where it's in your everyday use, and you already see it at Kroger and Walmart, right? And these companies are already using it to make sure that their supply chain's better, right? So I mean, we're already seeing it. It's just we don't hear about that as much, because people are worried about, like, am I going to have to create a password to make sure it's my mom on the other end of the phone, right? So, I know that, it's not a Mexican drug cartel that kidnapped her.
Trust but verify is some of my favorite term right there. Trust but verify.
That's actually my tagline on my military emails. It's Ronald Reagan, trust but verify.
Yep. Yeah. Military guys, we all kind of think that same way. So I've got, it's been a great conversation. I've got one final question, or maybe not a question, just a statement. And then, you can comment on it or choose not to, but how are we as, society gonna regulate AI?
Oh man. Did you see
That's
Wired
why I
magazine
said it's
this
more
month?
like a statement. It's not so much a question.
Did you see the cover of Wired magazine this month?
Oh, I didn't know. Is that what it says? Pretty much.
Well, so I'm not going to spoil that, but go look at the cover page of Wired magazine this month, and it's got some good stuff there too. But it is right up in front in your face, because look, you've already seen it from Google to OpenAI. Look, they've been in congressional hearings. That's one of the hardest things. Having worked with the government, Congress doesn't understand AI, right?
No.
And I mean, now there may be some people within Congress who do, but the actual regulation of it is going to be on humanity, right? Sure, we can sanction it, we can do all this stuff, we can put parameters on it, and one, how you and I choose to use it, right? That's the biggest thing. Is you have to have
Ethically,
a
right?
moral
Yeah.
compass. Right.
Yeah.
And that's something that if you really want to get into a world in global economics, politics, moral compasses, man, we got to work on that as a society right now.
Yeah.
But that moral compass
I want to throw it
internally,
out there, man, because it's a tough one.
So the moral compass of each human that's using it, and then the companies that are actually developing it, like you saw that Microsoft pulled back their AI, right? They had realized that it was growing and learning things that they didn't want it to be. It was becoming, well, I won't throw it out there. They were having issues with everything that people were searching, and they pulled it back. They did some reconfigurations. It's going to be on those companies to say, yeah, hey, obviously we're a business, we need to monetize this, but how do we monetize this safely so that we don't cause mass chaos? So again, I think like most professionals in this, like, hey, the AI overlords who are controlling this right now, be smart, because a lot of look, I work with a lot of good young kids who are ethical hackers, but sometimes they're like, hey, I did this and this. And I'm like, all right, stop and think. Like, and they're like, oh. So again, we've got a lot of smart young kids out there who are using this tool and learning how to move forward. So I encourage mentors out there who have young kids who know how to do things and are curious. Make sure you keep them on the moral straight path, and obviously the companies have to play their part too.
Just because you can doesn't always mean you should, right?
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. But on that note, do you have anything else to share with our audience before we get out of here?
No. I greatly appreciate being on here talking about AI and all that, and thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Zach, thanks again. It was a great conversation. I hope we get a chance to do this again sometime. If anybody has any questions or once the article is released, you can click on a link below and you can get more information on it. I highly suggest you take a read. It's a good read. But for now, Chris McGowan signing off from ISACA. See you next time.